Simple, effective, and deadly for trout all across the UK and anywhere else for trout in the world. If there's a body of still water, you can catch trout on these 3 nymphing methods. This is one of the universal fly fishing rules that you can catch fish anywhere on nymphs. Nymphs are in every water body in the world, and these 3 setups are the best way to fish nymphs for trout. I'm going to break down exactly how you can fish nymphs in these 3 styles, and you'll catch fish more effectively. If you've not been catching a lot of fish on nymphs, these are the 3 methods that you can use. Let's chat about it. The first one is the most simple, straight lining nymphs. Now, when I say straight lining, that refers to the fact that you have your fly line, your main line, and then just straight through fluorocarbon or nylon if you want to use it, but I much prefer fluorocarbon, along each of your nymphs. Now, if you're fishing one nymph, it would be considered straight lining one nymph from your fly line to that one nymph. Unusual, but one nymph would also be considered straight lining. My favorite way to fish straight line nymphs is to have 3 individual nymphs, which could be dowelbacks, it could be buzzers, it could be crunchers, it could be muskins. All of them work extremely well, and you can vary them however much you want. The important thing is to have your heaviest or biggest nymph on the point. On your droppers, you would then have smaller nymphs, either of both the same size, or the one in the middle be the second largest. So the way that I see it normally is straight lining nymphs is you want to stagger the size of your nymphs from biggest to smallest, from the point fly to the top dropper being the smallest. So that way you're able to cover different sizes of nymphs in the same cast, and you're able to pick out whether the fish want larger nymphs, whether they want smaller nymphs. It's quite important that sometimes the fish are super honed in on colour, size, or the way that it's being retrieved. So these 3 things you can cover off with straight lining nymphs. If you cast out a size 10, a size 12, and a size 14 on one cast, you slowly figure eight them back in. You know that you can at least count out size of each of these nymphs, the colour you can change across all of the nymphs, and also depth, because you're going to be fishing at different depths across that cast. That bottom fly, that point fly, is going to be the furthest down in the water column, with each other one being slightly higher up in the water column towards your floating line or your midge tip. Both of them work, depending on how deep the water is and the condition. But that way, you can start plumbing the depths and fish nymphs really effectively with straight line nymphs. Number 2 is quite possibly my favourite, and we've covered this in another video, washing line nymphs. Now, we covered the washing line of just an aspect in its own in another video, but I'm going to talk about it specifically, how it fishes nymphs so well. So nymphs, obviously in the water column, they are throughout the entire water column, but particularly when trout get honed in on them is when they start to get to that top foot or top couple of feet of the water column when they're hatching off. That is generally the time that fish get really honed in on nymphs. Now, a struggle for fly fishermen in general is trying to keep flies in that top killing zone is quite difficult. But the washing line technique does this amazingly. If you have a buoyant fly on the point, whether it's a dry fly, a fab with some foam in it, a booby, doesn't matter. As long as you have a buoyant fly on the point, which is not a nymph, and your 2 droppers, which are nymphs, are fishing in that killing zone, and is often what you're trying to catch fish on. Sometimes the point fly will literally not catch any fish. It is simply there to keep the 2 nymphs in that killing zone, and is a brilliant way to fish nymphs. So you treat this method the exact same as you would straight lining nymphs. You're testing out these 2 nymphs on the 2 droppers as to their size, their colour, and the way that you're fishing them. Try and change those about until you start getting reactions to different nymphs, and then you can hone in on exactly what the fish are feeding on and the types of nymphs that are going to work extremely well. But the washing line, quite possibly my favourite nymphing method of all, and keeps those flies high in the water column. Now, lastly, this is the most controversial way of fishing nymphs, and it works on rivers as well, is an indicator. fishing nymphs under an indicator is something that I've done in videos this winter, and it was extremely handy. Like, being able to fish those nymphs at specific depths, completely static, was amazing. Now, that is the one advantage of fishing nymphs under the bung, is being able to fish them with zero movement. Now, when you're fishing without a bung, it's very difficult to fish actually static. Now, if you have the straight line in nymphs that we were talking about, if you do not retrieve your fly line, those nymphs will be slowly moving down in the water column. So not actually static, which is interesting. You never can really replicate a truly static nymph without an indicator. You can get pretty close with a washing line because obviously you've got your point fly, which is buoyant, and your two nymphs. Now, that's going to slow down everything. So it's not really going to move very slowly down the water column, but it's not actually fully static, which is quite interesting. So the indicator method, you can do this in a bunch of different ways. You don't actually have to use a foam indicator or a polystyrene indicator. You can actually use flies. So I quite like using a massive clink hammer. If you've got a massive clink hammer, this is what works on the rivers, is known as a dry dropper rig. You can, or the duo, you can put a clink hammer on the dropper and then a nymph on the point, and then you're going to be fishing that nymph fully static. Now, when I'm fishing stillwaters, I don't really like to use a clink hammer too much, just because when it's fully sitting in static water, that clink hammer never really fishes too well. There's not really, it's a big advantage having a clink hammer on the river because you can catch fish on the clink hammer. But not many fish will take a clink hammer in still water. You still get the odd fish, but what's more effective, much more effective, is either a large CDC dry fly or a bright indicator fly, because you will get fish attacking that bright indicator fly as well. So those two dry flies I find work really well for the indicator with nymphs, and this is the best way to be able to fish fully static without any movement in those nymphs, and there's not really a better way to do that. Now, these are the three best ways that I like fishing nymphs, with the first two being the main two ways that I really fish nymphs throughout the year. But let's have a chat in the comments if there's any other ways that you like to fish nymphs, and even if you've got other tips and tricks. Now, some people like to fish 4 flies, some people prefer just the 3 or even less than that. But let's have a chat in the comments about what your nymph fishing techniques are. And we can go through some flies in another video as well. I think nymph flies are always an interesting chat because there are so many. So let me know if you want to have another video on nymphs, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Tight lines. Now, if you enjoyed this video, go and check out My Fishing Flies. They've got an amazing selection of flies. Everything that I used in this video is on their website, and you can use code VICEFLIES for 10% off. Go and check them out.